Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you very much for coming. As you know, we're presenting a workshop today on diversity in the workplace, focusing specifically on racism in the workplace. As most of you will know, my name's Laura and I'm from HR, and want to thank you for making the time to come to this workshop today. We might go around and just introduce ourselves in the room and what our position is within the organisation. Would you like to start?
Yeah, I'm Ashley from reception.
I'm Michael from HR.
I'm Tom from IT.
Okay, well thanks so much for making the time to come today. As you can see, we've got some slides in front of us, and we're going to work through those today. There's going to be some activities that we'll do, and we'll have a general discussion about cultural diversity in the workplace. So I thought it would be a good place to start to talk about what diversity is overall in a workplace, and there are many different types of diversity. Today we will be focusing on cultural diversity, which is people from different cultures in the workplace, but diversity can include things such as gender, sexual orientation, age, and also disability. So there are a lot of types of different diverse groups in our workplace. But as I said today, we'll be focusing on what is racism and cultural diversity. So racism occurs where there is a prejudice, discrimination or antagonism which is directed at a person of a different race. This is usually based on the belief that one race is superior to another or better than another. There are different types of discrimination that can occur against person of a different race. The first one is what we call direct discrimination. And direct discrimination is where a person is treated differently from another person of a different race. So one person may, for example, get a promotion and another person may not based on their race. But racism can also present as indirect discrimination. This occurs where there's an unreasonable policy or rule that, although affects everybody, it has an unfair impact on one other person or group of people. So, some examples of racism in the workplace. It can start in the pre-work area. It can actually start in recruitment. An example of racism in recruitment is where the workplace has a small proportion of staff from a particular group that does not accurately reflect the ethnicity of the area. It can occur in the working environment where there's assumptions made that a particular racial group may have specific skills. For example, Indian or Asian employees that are given jobs specifically only in IT. It can occur at promotion, where promotion is dependent upon relationships built between the manager and the worker and not on the skills. And it can also occur more commonly as harassment, where jokes are made about a particular culture or jokes are made that make others just simply feel uncomfortable. So our first activity will be to think about what are some of the examples of racism that you've actually witnessed, either at work or in a workplace. Ashley, would you like to start on some ideas you have around this?
Well, I'm from the Indian cultural background, and in a previous role, the manager did not want people with accents making calls to clients.
Okay, so that sounds like an area of direct discrimination. How about you, Michael?
I'm involved in a lot of recruitment and find that there are unconscious bias sometimes by people that are interviewing staff. I often have question interviewers to ensure that they are making decisions based on merit and not on any bias they may have.
Okay, and how about you, Tom?
One of my friends at work is a Muslim, and my boss doesn't think that he should get paid for the breaks he takes to pray.
Okay, so that again sounds like an area of direct discrimination. we're actually going to do a case study that Tom really relates to what you were just saying. So, in a multicultural workplace, it's important to recognise and appreciate the cultural aspects of people's lives. One such example of this is Ramadan. So, Ramadan is an important time for people who practice Islam. It is a time for reflection and commemoration, and is observed through fasting during daylight hours. The issue for workplaces is how they continue operations while recognising the cultural observance of Ramadan by staff. So I was thinking about what are some of the behaviours that we may do that may be deemed racist towards employees during Ramadan, remembering that they're unable to eat during daylight hours, they have an increased requirement to pray, plus they also have cultural festivals and ceremonies that they need to attend to. So when we think about those actions that may be seen as not respecting their culture, could be a strict adherence to work hours. So saying to somebody, you need to be here between, say, 7 a.m. and 4 p.m. when they need to be at the mosque at 7 a.m. Not allowing staff time to pray. So there are times where male Muslims during Ramadan will need to have some private time to pray, and we need to be able to be respectful of that. And that includes having a private area in which to pray. It's also important that we also respect their observance of fasting during daylight hours. So if you were going to have a celebratory lunch or dinner to congratulate your particular work group on the work that they've achieved, it's probably something that would be best done not during Ramadan, so all workers can participate in that activity. At the end of Ramadan, there's also a time of Eid, which is where they celebrate the breaking of the fast. It's also important that we give sufficient time for people to go off and celebrate these cultural observances and allow them to take that time to spend with their family. When I think about racism in the workplace and think about Ramadan as an example, we think about the possible impacts if we don't put these things in place to support people who have and respect for different cultures. And the possible impacts really of that is that staff members will feel that their beliefs are not respected. That productivity may go down because employees may feel that they need to take extended time off during Ramadan and that they are not able to have their cultural observance and work during the same time. And it really affects the reputation of the organisation because you may no longer be the employer of choice for staff, and people may look for other opportunities. So we've come to our next activity, and I might start with Tom this time. Tom, what types of things can you do in the workplace to avoid racism?
Definitely, ensure the promotions are based on merit and of fact, and there's a fair and transparent system in place to ensure that everyone is considered for promotion.
Okay, that's a really good idea. Michael, what's your ideas?
I have anti-discrimination policies that clearly state the expectations of all employees in relation to preventing discrimination.
And Ashley, what's your ideas?
Well, all employees should have a good understanding of the cultures that people follow. For example, I am Hindu and we have the Diwali festival each year that is very important to me. So I need to ensure that I have time during Diwali to spend time with my family.
And I think that's really important. I think it's a really important point you bring up, Ashley, that we don't just assume everybody follows a Christian calendar and celebrates Easter and Christmas as well. So I just wanted to spend the next couple of minutes doing an analysis of the workplace and the work group. So I'm really interested with having you all here today about what is the predominant culture of this group that's here today. So Ashley, do you mind sharing with us what your culture is?
My culture is Indian.
Right.
I'm a working visa from the United Kingdom.
Okay, and Tom, where are you from?
I'm an Australian Aboriginal.
Okay, so we've got quite a wide range of people here in the group today. I'm interested to understand, what do you think the predominant culture of the workplace as a whole is? As you will probably know your workmates quite closely. Ashley, what do you think the predominant culture is of the workplace?
Given that our office is located in the city, there is a wide range of cultural groups. It is hard to choose which one is predominant over the others. However, even though there is a wide group of people, people with English-speaking backgrounds are still predominant.
Okay. Michael, what's your view on what you think the predominant culture of the workplace is as a whole?
The predominant culture is English-speaking people born in Australia. However, we are working towards a 5% increase in cultural diversity within the next 2 years. HR is working very closely with staff what we can do to encourage people from different backgrounds to apply for roles. We are now advertising in Chinese and Vietnamese newspapers.
Well, that sounds like a really great initiative, Michael, and I think that will hopefully increase the cultural diversity in the workplace. How about you, Tom? What do you think the predominant culture in the workplace is?
Definitely, we are increasing our numbers, staff from different backgrounds, but we have a long way to go. I have recently been assisting in drafting an Indigenous Employment Initiative where we will advertise for Aboriginal identified positions.
And I think that's a really important point, Tom, is that sometimes in a workplace there are identified positions. So when we think about culture, we think about what strengths our different cultures bring to this organisation. Ashley, if I can start with you, what do you think is what strengths does the culture bring to the organisation?
As a government organisation, the cultural diversity of the group means that we are able to interact with a wide range of people in many languages. We have been able to get staff who are multilingual to help us draft communications in a wide range of languages and formats.
So interacting with people from other cultural backgrounds is improved because we have a good cultural diversity in our workplace. So that sounds like a really good idea. How about you, Michael?
We want to be the employer of choice for people from cultural diverse backgrounds. Being an employer of choice would mean that we would retain the best people, increasing productivity, but it will also mean that our organisation has an excellent reputation amongst other similar organisations.
Excellent. Well, thank you for that, Michael. Tom, what are your views?
Different life experiences allow creative problem solving. When you put a diverse group of people in a room, they will all look at a problem through a different lens. For example, when I'm looking at a social policy issue, I think about how the solution will be affected and be viewed by the Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islanders people.
And I think that's really interesting. What the point you make there is that cultural diversity and different ways of thinking actually lead to innovative problem solving and creative solutions. So I think you've got a really good point there, Tom. I just want to spend a little bit of time now looking at the racism and anti-discrimination legislation in Queensland that affects us in our workplace here as part of the Queensland government. So the Anti-Discrimination Act was founded in 1991 in Queensland, and Section 7 of that Act sets out prohibited grounds for discrimination, and Section 7G specifically refers to race. You might recall before in this presentation I spoke about direct and indirect discrimination, and the Anti-Discrimination Act actually sets out in Section 10 and 11 the definitions of direct and indirect discrimination. I just want to focus a little bit on Section 14 and 15 of the Anti-Discrimination Act, and I've just got them here. And Section 14 of the Anti-Discrimination Act talks about discrimination in the pre-work area. And what that means by the pre-work area is where basically you're looking at recruiting somebody. So I just want to summarise a couple of points in here. It talks about a person must not discriminate in deciding who should be offered work. They shouldn't be discriminated in terms of the work that they're offered and in the failing to offer work, or by denying a person seeking work access to a guidance program, apprenticeship training program, or other occupational training or retraining program. Section 15 of the Act goes even further than that and talks about discrimination in the actual work area. So it talks about that a person must not discriminate in denying or limiting opportunities for people, in dismissing a worker, again by denying access to guidance programs, or by treating a worker unfavourably in any way in connection with work. So you can see that the Anti-Discrimination Act takes racial discrimination very seriously and is very broad in that last section, particularly by treating a worker unfavourably in any way in connection with work. In the Queensland Government, we also have specific workplace policies and procedures. The Queensland Public Service Code of Conduct expects that employees will act with integrity and impartiality. Specifically, Section 1.5 states that employers will treat co-workers, clients and members of the public with courtesy and respect. Be appropriate in your relationships with them and recognise that others have the rights to hold views that may differ from our own. But it also goes even further to say that to ensure that the conduct of Queensland public servants reflects commitment to a workplace that is inclusive and free from harassment. The Queensland public sector has also got a 5-year inclusion and diversity policy. This strategy is developed to build a diverse and inclusive workplace. This strategy looks to include multicultural, disability and gender equity strategies. The themes of the strategy include accountability and leadership. This means that leaders will be held accountable to encourage diversity and inclusiveness. It is to attract, develop and retain talent, where organisations can leverage difference to a benefit. And finally, for the Queensland public sector to be the employer of choice, where everyone has the ability and the opportunity to contribute and shine. I just wanted to finish off on the benefits of cultural diversity, and we spoke about the strengths previously. You came up with some really great ideas about what strengths there are in having a culturally diverse workplace. But I just wanted to touch on those couple of points. Increased productivity. As Tom said before, when people have different diverse backgrounds, they bring different talents and life experiences to the work group. That can increase productivity. Productivity can also increase as people feel valued and people work towards a common goal. It also allows organisations, especially government organisations, to interact with a wide variety of people from different cultural and linguistic backgrounds. And I think, Ashley, you brought that up before. I've just got 2 quick examples, case studies, where cultural diversity has really been beneficial to organisations. Freehills is a large law firm who has recognised that unconscious bias, which what you were talking about previously, Michael, was affecting the culture in their workplace. They actually commenced unconscious bias leadership training to have greater awareness of the need for cultural diversity at workplace. I found this quote really interesting, that one CEO felt that he held no bias against others. However, when asked what time he called his first meeting that morning, he replied 7:30. The CEO was then asked, well, what happens if you need to take children to school? This was a light bulb moment for the CEO, that he had an unconscious bias towards people who may have children. The second example I'd like to give you is Woolworths. Woolworths is one of Australia's largest employees. Woolworths has an employment parity initiative that they've set up with the federal government, which will see 1,600 additional Indigenous workers over the next 3 years. In predominantly Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander communities, this has been very successful. For example, in Kalgoorlie, this initiative has been very successful and there's been positive impacts right throughout the community, with 12% of all new hires last year being Indigenous employees. As we come to the end of this presentation, I'd like to just point you towards some resources that you might find helpful if you have some more questions on cultural diversity in the workplace. The Human Rights Commission has some really great resources on their website, and you'll see that www.humanrights.gov.au, they have breakdowns of the legislation both by state and federal. The Harmony Day sites. The Harmony Day celebrates diversity right throughout the Australian community, not just in workplaces, and again a really good site to seek resources in regards to how to ensure cultural diversity. And the Diversity Council of Australia is a peak body who leads diversity and inclusion in the workplace, and you'll find excellent resources at their website at www.dca.org.au. So we're just coming to the end of our presentation. I'd like to say thank you for attending today. I just wanted to get some feedback from you on the presentation, and also whether or not this has changed your view of cultural diversity and racism in the workplace. We might start with you, Tom.
I wonder if our organisation is doing enough to encourage people from other cultures to join our organisation.
And that's a really good point. And I think we need to, as an organisation, when we're looking at recruitment, really ask that question each time we're convening a panel. So I think that's a really great idea, Tom. Michael, do you have any feedback?
I think that this training should be rolled out to all staff to make them think more broadly about racism and cultural diversity.
And yes, and that's something we'll definitely be looking at doing, because I think cultural diversity and ensuring there's no discrimination in the workplace is a responsibility of everyone. Ashley, did you have any final comments?
Yes, I thought racism was just making fun of other cultures. I didn't realise that racism can take so many forms.
That's right. I think some people do forget there is direct discrimination and indirect discrimination, and I think that's something really important to remember. So thank you everyone for attending today, and I will be providing some feedback forms, but thanks for your time today.
Thank you.
Thank you.
End of recording.